Good afternoon. Welcome to the Maple Gold Mines Investor Update webinar. Maple Gold is listed on the Venture Exchange with the ticker MGM and is OTC listed as well with the ticker MGMLF. Maple Gold is a well-funded exploration company with assets in the Abitibi Greenstone belt in Quebec. Last we spoke, the company had just announced a joint venture agreement with Agnico Eagle. Since then, a lot has happened. They've launched a major drill program, have announced several of the best intercepts to date on their assets, and this morning announced plans for a drilling program at the Eagle Mine. Matthew Hornor is the CEO of Maple Gold, and Fred Speidel is here as well, who's the VP Exploration. We'll go through an update from the company, followed by a question and answer period. So if you have any questions, you can input them into the Q&A box below, or you can email them to tina@adcap.ca. As always, this discussion might contain some forward-looking information, so you can view that disclaimer on the presentation. So thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to getting the update. Obviously, a lot's been going on in the last while, and you guys have had some amazing results, so looking forward to hearing about it.
Sure, thanks, Tina, and thank you for everyone who's attending and listening into today's webinar. Dr. Speidel is joining me today. I'll give everyone a minute to read this in detail. I'd like to start with providing a highlight, or I would say the crib notes of where we are and what we're doing and with whom we're doing it. This slide indicates that we have an operating project that's in the Abitibi, as it was just mentioned. The largest gold mine in Canada is nearby, operated, of course, by our partners Agnico with Mana, Detour Lake, Hecla, etc. So we're in a good jurisdiction, one of the best, I think, on the planet. Our existing resource estimate states that we have 2.77 million ounces. That will be updated this year to include additional 19,000 meters of drilling. And we've added the high-grade past-producing Joutel asset as well that came in from Agnico to form the joint venture partnership. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well, along with the addition of the Eagle project, which we acquired in July of this year. As noted, last time we spoke was just after we formed the relationship and the partnership with Agnico Eagle. Lots has happened since then, not only with our maiden drill program, which Fred will talk about in a minute, and all the fantastic results there, but of course there's been quite a big announcement between Agnico Eagle and Kirkland Lake, which I think impacts the sector in a dramatically positive fashion for many reasons. The management team, led by myself, hails from other large mining companies and former banks, which I think we're a well-oiled machine in terms of capital markets, and also providing the support for the team on the ground to drive the project forward and add value for our shareholders. Our cash position is quite robust. We're sitting on today around $18 million. Agnico is contributing about the same, and we have about $21.2 million in warrants should they be exercised, which we expect that they will. One of my mandates, among many, was to change the nature of the shareholding to add more institutional shareholders to our world, and I think in my time here, I've done that. We've done that as a team to bring in Fidelity, of course. Agnico is a big one. Goodman, Crescat, and Case Depot, who were never there before I joined. So this is the snapshot of what we're going to be talking about today, and we'll get to some more detail. And I'll let Fred take over in a minute to talk about the exciting results we've had so far and some of the forward-looking plans for exploration at Eagle, at Joutel and Douay. Next slide, please. Just a quick note on why Quebec is so great. It's been hosted 200 million ounces of production so far to date. You get 37 cents back on every dollar you spend on the ground, which is quite important, of course. Also worth mentioning is that since 2013, there's been $12 billion with a B in M&A activity just in the Abitibi, and we enjoy access to skilled labor and great government support across the board. So it's important to have the ability to actually build something where you find it, and we definitely have that in spades. Next slide, please. Here's a map that shows you who are some of our neighbors. As I mentioned before, we're on the Casa Berardi deformation zone, and we're surrounded by, as you can see, current and past producers. Next slide, please. Here's a little closer up view. As you can see, you could drive up the 109 highway. We were just at site a few days ago with a number of analysts from the major Canadian banking world, and we were able to drive right to the campsite from the 109 highway. It's 55 kilometers from Matagami to the northeast, and Amos down to the southwest, not too much farther away. As you can see, there's power and water everywhere. We can hook up to the main lines from our camp, which is a great thing if you're looking for a hot shower after a hard day's work. Yes, next slide, please. I think this was mentioned last year, but we had the webinar just after we signed the term sheet. What we formed in the definitive agreement as of February of this year was the joint venture with Agnico. As mentioned, this creates a 400 square kilometer land package. And I mentioned the contributed funds for exploration from Agnico's world. Friedrich Speidel is the joint general manager of the joint venture operations, because I think his work and success in the field was apparent to Agnico, and they didn't want to fix something that wasn't broken and in fact was doing quite well. We get access to their technical expertise and also their support when we move this project forward past the PEA and beyond the feasibility study to when we get underway down the road, which we expect to happen in the future. We get their assistance with project financing as well. Next slide, please. So the current state of play with Douay is that we have, as I mentioned, 2.77 million ounces. In the indicated category, it's 422,000 ounces at 1.52 grams per ton average. Inferred is 2.35 million ounces at 103 grams per ton. And that will be updated, as I mentioned, later this year. We'll use RPA. They're a very conservative group, and we like more conservative. We expect this number to change in the positive direction. We don't have those numbers yet, so I can't give you those today, but that will be updated later this year. Some of the upcoming catalysts, we just announced this week the final assays, and Fred's going to walk through and explain to you all the great hits and what those mean for the project Douay going forward. We released those. Some of the things we'll be doing at site this year are the geophysics and fall drilling at Nika and 531 zone, which will commence in the last quarter of this year, and the estimate update as well. At Joutel, which is a project that was thankfully contributed by our partners, this was, just to remind the audience, a widely productive project over the course of nearly 20 years. They produced 1.15 million ounces at when the gold price was around $360 per ounce. We put out to the market the 3D modeling exercise where we digitized all the historic data. And just for a point of reference, 250,000 meters of historic drill data is equivalent to around $75 million in value for the data alone, just based on drilling prices. So one of the most significant things the company's ever done, and to show the world what was left behind by the team in 1993. So this is quite significant. We'll talk about that momentarily. We're working on the priority drill targeting and permitting, which will happen later this year, and we anticipate the drill program to commence the first part of next year. So Joutel is an incredibly important project for us, and we'll show you why in a second. Next slide, please. The third is the Eagle Mine property, which we at Maple have auctioned 100% ownership of. Just this morning, we put out our drill program and targets for that land package, which sits just adjacent to the Telbill and Joutel projects, which I showed you a second ago. This is a 77 hectare claim with a high-grade underground gold mine. It was part of Agnico's first gold mining camp. And it includes a production shaft, which we've just visited. It sits at about 9 or 15 meters in depth approximately. It's actually connected to the Tellbell project, mine at depth, but via drift. There's been extremely limited exploration activity since the mine closure in 1993. I can't emphasize that enough. In 1992, Agnico drilled 10 meters of 10 grams, which we'll show you where that was in a second. And then between 2008 and 2015, Globex completed 6 widely spaced infill and step out drills, which returned some nice hits, actually, 12 meters of nearly 3 grams and 5 meters almost at another 5 grams. So what we're going to be doing here is chasing a lot of these high-grade historical intercepts. And Fred can walk you through the rationale why that's exciting for us in the drill program which we announced this morning. We put the 3D model out. I encourage everyone to go take a careful look at what that is, where they high graded and mined out in the past. But keep in mind that all that was done when gold was in the range of $150 to $350 per ounce. So entirely different gold price environment, which gives us, I think, incredible upside and potential here. Next slide, please. So Fred, why don't you walk us through this slide briefly, and then really get into the big hits we've had this year and what the forward-looking plan is. I'll let you take over from here and talk about the conceptual pits from RPA and where it sits.
Sounds good. Thank you, Matthew. So the figure on the right-hand side, perhaps the key point there is the scale of it. So we're looking at 6 kilometers end to end and about 2 kilometers width. In blue is the inferred resources, and green is the indicated resources. Matthew's already indicated the grade of the indicated is 1.52. The grade of the inferred is 0.97 in pit and 1.75 in the underground portion that lies underneath the pits. The underground is the first pass. We have very little drilling really below the pit level. So just to give us an impression of what we might be looking at going forward. And we'll have another slide in a moment, I think, where we can show what the expected expansion potential is there. Next slide, please. Here we're just showing that the deposit as a whole, again, we see the same pits in gray with the mineralization in greens and reds showing the grade distribution, if you wish. This system sits astride a major break. We've talked about the Casa Berardi fault a moment ago. As you know, in the Abitibi, most of the major gold deposits sit very close or on these major breaks. And we have mineralization that occurs both in the beige colored rocks to the north and the green colored rocks to the south, as you can see from the distribution of the conceptual pits here. So again, the key point is 6 by 2 kilometer resource at the present point in time. And we have a number of exploration targets that occur immediately adjacent to the known resource, as well as several kilometers further afield. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing is a 3D render of the current state of affairs, distribution of the 2021 drill holes in blue, 2020 and 2021. And here also note the kind of pinkish keels to the conceptual pits. Those are the underground reporting shapes that combined provide for the resource that was shown a moment ago. I also like to show the location of the 3 major hits, if you wish, starting from the northwest end. So DO21 282X, 1.6 grams per ton gold over 132 meters, which was the longest continuous intercept of gold mineralization ever on the property. Obviously, we're pretty excited about that. DO21 295 hit 2 Bonanza grade intervals, one more or less within the zone that was already known, and that was 334 grams per ton gold over 1 meter. And another intercept further downhole and outside the northern boundary and lower boundary of the current conceptual pit, 72.7 grams per ton gold over 7 meters, 0.7 meters, sorry. And that is open for several hundred meters to the east where there isn't any drilling. The northern margin of the porphyry zone is actually not very well defined. Finally, last but not least, hole DO21 310, that gave us 8.8 grams per ton gold over 28.8 meters, including 12.7 grams per ton over 10 meters. That's very significant because we hadn't drilled there for some time and drilled a hole in 2019 that gave us some very good intercepts and that were significantly better than the original discovery hole. Now this intercept here from winter 2021 is better yet. So, and we've also done additional holes. You can see a bunch of blue lines there. There's a series of holes that were drilled there that were meant to test the southeast extension of the 531 zone based on geophysical results from a survey we did not too long ago. And that zone is actually still open to the southeast. So we'll be doing additional drilling in all 3 areas and attempting to expand the 531 zone to the east-southeast as well. Did want to mention that since RPA 2019 resource, there were 19,000 meters that were drilled, of which more than 15,000 was within the resource area. So there should be some significant impact on the results there. Next slide, please. So this is on the right-hand side of the table is meant to show the distribution of the intercepts that the current team has drilled in green. So you can see that 6 or 5 rather of the top 10 hits were drilled by this team in the last 4 years, and actually it's 3 of the top 5 ever. So that's pretty significant, and I think it's a testament, if you wish, to the targeting methodology that we currently use, which involves keeping a 3D model up to date in real time and using it in much detail to be able to define where exactly we want to drill our holes. Another item worth pointing out is you can see in the upper photographs, the core racks occupy quite an area in the infrastructure area at site. We do have the core dating all the way back to the 1976 discovery hole. So that's a true library of information, which really allows us to go back to the historical core and compare it to the more recent core that we're drilling. The other thing is that the historical core was mainly assayed for gold, not a lot of multi-element geochemistry. And we have been doing reassays both with the XRF, portable XRF gun that we have on site, as well as additional wet geochemistry to give us a better handle on pathfinders towards gold. Next slide, please. So here's just the distribution of the 2021 drilling in those the pink dots, the distribution of the holes for which the results were recently released. And again, the intercepts, the 3 highlights that I mentioned a moment ago in Porphyry West Zone, Nika Zone, and 531 Zone, that of course we're pretty excited about and looking forward to do follow-up on. Main Zone hole is the last one that's mentioned. It's not highlighted in color, but it is significant. 50 meters of 1.5. It's significant because it's in that northern rock type, which was the kind of beigey color, and probably one of the better intercepts in those what we call sedimentary rock on the north side of the Casa Berardi break. Next slide, please. Here we're showing what the Nika Zone intercept looked like. Again, this was a discovery from 2018, so things have evolved quite positively since then. What we're showing here in the greens and reds are the current, that is 2019 blocks. The outline of the RPA pit shell in blue, also 2019, and the position of this intercept. And you can see that the upper half of the intercept overlaps areas that are currently outlined as being white. White means less than 0.45, so either low-grade stockpile or actual internal waste. So clearly the mineralized zone is significantly broader than is currently modeled. It's open up dip, where we have the open untested text, also open down dip. And so what we would expect from this result is to have not only more ounces, but a higher average grade for Nika. And of course, there's lots of room left for additional drilling. Note also hole DO 1157, which was drilled too short and which we'll attempt to extend in probably in this winter's program. Also note that about 35% of the intercept is below the base of the pit. So I think there's good potential there with additional exploration to expand that pit to greater depth and increase the contained tons and ounces. Note that the full intercept was 195 meters at 1.28. That's very significant. And as I said, the longest continuous intercept of gold mineralization on the property. That includes 132 meters of 1.58 and includes 100 meters of 1.76. So pretty good average grades. The other point that's worth noting is the 100.3 meters at, let's say, rounded off to 1.8 grams per ton gold is exactly the grade as the original discovery hole, but pretty well exactly double the length. So I think it's quite encouraging for the Nika Zone. Next slide, please. Moving on now to 531 Zone. That's the 28.5 meters at 8.8 grams per ton gold. Another top 5 intercept to date at Douay. Right-hand side, you can see in the middle of the picture, there's some shinier gold showing up. The duller spots are pyrite within a rock that appears to be fragmented, brecciated. On the left-hand side, you can see a trend that's fairly well established. 70531 on the left-hand side is the original discovery hole. That's 18.3 meters of 3.2 grams per ton gold. Series of other holes, 21.8 at 2.4 for 34A, the hole that we just referenced. And also the hole 262. What we're showing here, the 51 meters of 2.8, that's just the lower interval. There's an upper interval that doesn't appear on this section that has 25 meters of very similar grade. So essentially, the idea here is that we have 2 different trends, interpreted, of course, at this point, that indicate that, you know, the trends are open towards the surface, are open to depth along the more westerly trend, and also open at depth and towards surface along the more easterly trend. So there's more drilling to be done here to better understand the full extent of the system at 531 zone, and it'll certainly be a focus not only of our fall 2021 drilling, but also the winter 2022. Next slide, please. Okay, so moving on, now we're having a look at the Bonanza grade intercepts, and that was in the porphyry zone, roughly in the west central part of the overall resource area. The 334 gram per ton gold, you can see the shiny yellow stuff. That's a fair amount of gold there. The more silvery dots are pyrite. This is an altered cyanite, which is a common host here at the deposit. And 72.7 grams per ton gold is 300 meters further downhole. Again, it's fairly easy to recognize the pyrite is silvery and the gold is very much yellower. Different rock type. The 334 grams per ton is on the south side of the Casa Berardi break, and the 72.7 is on the north side of the Casa Berardi break. So I have quite the corridor to work with. Next slide, please. This is just to show the same hole for which we just show the photographs in an oblique view. And we're pointing out that in this area here, note the outline of the pit, which is this pale gray. A number of important intercepts. DO1297 was 1.2 grams per ton gold over 163.5 meters. That is a 2012 hole that used to be the single longest intercept until we drilled an eco hole. A series of other good values. Just draw your attention to DO21295, which are the red boxes. The upper intercept, which is more or less within the known zone. The lower intercept, which is in northern extension, if you wish, that is very poorly drilled. And that's open not only at depth, like up dip, down dip, but also along strike over several hundreds of meters. So that's pretty encouraging in terms of looking for additional zones along this northern boundary. Next slide, please. Here, what we're looking at is a projection along a long section of the entire system. So end to end, 6 kilometers, the full 2 kilometer width. Main point here is that we see the outline of the pits in gray, the RPA 2019. We see the blocks all at a grade greater than 1 gram per ton in orange, up to greater than 5 grams per ton in purple. The reporting shapes in green, and those reporting shapes, only those blocks within the reporting shapes were given as being part of inferred underground resources. So you can see that the actual distribution of mineralization provides for at least twice the volume that's actually calculated according to these reporting shapes. And also very obviously, these things are open to depth. We've put on here for reference, the vertical extent on the left-hand side, the dots. So Kalinian Malartic, which is quite similar geologically, has a vertical depth continuity of over 2 kilometers and has a lateral continuity of about 6 kilometers. So that's the kind of horizontal blue bar. You see that the lateral extent of Malartic is very similar to the lateral extent of the entire Douay system. And we've only really drilled to 350, 400 meters on average. We do have a few holes that are deeper, down to 960 meters. There is mineralization down to 930. And there's no geological reason, given the trends that we observe on this figure, no geological reason why mineralization would not extend well below 1 kilometer depth. So there clearly is a lot of room for resource expansion via deeper drilling. And we've been doing a little bit of that, however, been focusing mainly on the open pittable portion, because that has a shorter term economic impact, if you wish, because this is currently being viewed as an open pit system with a later underground expansion. Next slide, please. So here we're looking at the distribution of the overall targets. So on the upper figure, this kind of pink areas on the right-hand side there, that's the Douay resource area that we've touched on. A series of other targets, the red blobs, Northeast IP, we've recently drilled. There was no historical drilling there. We found a new sulfide system that's about over 2 kilometers long. It has the odd gold showing, a significant anomalous arsenic and silver, and the partnership will be drilling additional holes there during the course of winter 2022. Note also the black blobs, those are copper and zinc target areas, and the red blob at the 2 red blobs at the far western end, those are gold and till anomalies. We will be testing the western half of the Douay property and the Joutel property in its entirety to the south with this airborne EM survey that we will be flying. And the airborne EM has a characteristic of being very good at detecting massive sulfides. And basically both Eagle Tell Bell as well as the targets for these black and red polygons are more massive sulfide type of system. So we're looking forward to the results of that. That airborne survey is expected to start within the next 2 weeks. There is excellent potential for the remaining high-grade mineralization at Joutel. Basically, during the time this was mined, there wasn't that much exploration that was done, and certainly not to greater depth. And we can show you in a moment on the long section where we believe the best potential exists, both up plunge towards the surface as well as down plunge at depth. Next slide, please. Okay, just to give you a little bit of background of where things were. Basically, production began at Joutel with the Eagle mine. That was like 1973. Price of gold was under 250. Price of gold had a brief peak in the 1980s, but averaged about 352. In 1993, you can see that that's when the mine closed. Not a lot of exploration done since then. A little bit of work by an incoming option partner, which lasted for 2 years, but they didn't actually drill in the deposit area. They drilled several kilometers further to the east, found some very interesting mineralization, some of it similar to Eagle Belt, but didn't really do sufficient follow-up. So we did a geophysical survey over there and are currently in the process of relogging the available core from that time in order to vector towards areas of interest. So that'll be defining additional targets going forward. Next slide, please. So this is now focusing in on Eagle Belt. On the left-hand side, we see a plan view. Won't go into the details of the geology, but it is important to note that we have, again, a major break or tectonic zone, which is the blue line called the Harricana Fault. That juxtaposes gray rocks, if you wish, against yellow rocks, and gold mineralization, which is shown as red dots, and each red dot represents a drill intercept of greater than 2 grams per ton. So you can see there's a pretty strong concentration of these red dots along the break, or the contact between yellow and gray rocks. Having said that, there are also a series of red dots further to the north, like about 500 meters to the north on a subsidiary trend, which we call the Harricana target trend. And perhaps less well-defined, there's another series of red dots to the south, which we call the Eagle West target trend. And that's also shown in the figure to the right, a cross-section across the whole system. You can see the Eagle West target trend with the Eagle West pit, and pretty shallow underground workings, very little to no deep drilling. The Eagle Belt mine trend with the modeled solid, within which we contoured the grade distribution. You'll note that there's a bunch of drill intercepts that are outside the solid, and one could easily imagine subsidiary structures linking the southern and the main trend. And to the north, of course, the Harricana target trend, which also has not been drilled very deeply and represent for us some prime exploration targets. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing here is the overall long section, so contoured within the main mine horizon only. And so just in a general sense, it looks a bit complicated, but in a general sense, you can see the overall trend of the system going from Eagle West down to the limits of Tel Bell. That's the blue lines, which indicate a relatively shallow dip to the southeast. But if you look in more detail at the distribution of grades, again, purple, the hotter colors are the highest grades, and yellows are somewhat lower, but still greater than the gram per ton. You can see trends appearing. So there's a steeper southeast trend that's shown by the red arrows. And then there's a cross trend, also fairly steep, shown by the green arrows. And you can also see that the area that was mined out, so that's the area in black there below the Tel Bell shaft, he basically high graded that. And that essentially is at the intersection of these main shallow blue trends with the 2 other steeper trends. So I think we can apply the same general philosophy for targeting on both areas, Eagle area and Tel Bell area. Note perhaps the 0.20 at the far eastern portion of the figure. That's about 81 grams per ton, relatively narrow, but very high grade, which indicates that the system is clearly still open in that area and open to reasonably shallow depth. And then we also have a number of drill holes. I guess that would be site 18, which indicate depth continuity of the Tel Bell area itself, and similar kind of patterns in the Eagle area. So it's important to note, depending on the scale of observation, you have different trends, and there's different controls also depending on the scale of observation. So lots of targets to chase, and we'll be starting our drill program with the Eagle area, where basically, because the company has the rights to 100% of the property, we're kind of masters of our own destiny, and we can more or less do what we want there. Next slide, please. This is just for the Tell Bell area, showing the distribution of intercepts, a selection, note grade times thickness. So that's a way of assessing the importance of the accumulation of gold. Just multiply the width times the grade. You can see that above a mined out stope from surface to 500 meters depth, the grade time thickness values are between 15 and 50 more or less. At depth below 1,000 meters, the grade times thickness are between 50 and 200. So there's an indication there. It's not a conclusion because you need more data to be able to conclude that, but it's certainly permissible to postulate that there may be an increase in grade and thickness with depth, and we'll see that when we do additional drilling. Next slide, please. So what we're focusing in on here is the Eagle portion of the system that we'll be drilling first. And there's 3 areas that were of particular interest to us, and they're shown in 32.9 grams per ton gold over 10.4 meters. That's near surface, and that would be, remember here, 32, yeah, that would be 0.9. And so that's one area of interest for us from a targeting perspective. 16.2 grams per ton gold over 9.0 meters. I think that was site 4, 10.2 grams per ton gold over 10.2 meters. That's site 2. So basically the main targets for initial drilling would be the ellipse that has sites 1 and 2 on its edges, the ellipse that has site 10 on its edge, and also just above that ellipse where site 9 is. So we plan to do about 2,500, 3,000 meters phase 1 drill program. That is expected to commence in the 4th quarter. We're currently finalizing the position of these of the collars for that in order to be able to submit for forestry intervention permits. Next slide, please. So now we're flipping over to Tell Bell to the east, showing the distribution of target areas there. Note that these ellipses have very few pierce points. Pierce points basically represent the dot at the point where a drill hole crosses through the modeled solid. As you can see that the vertical ellipse on the left-hand side has 0 pierce points, but has some interesting intersections on the edge of it. So 6 and 7, 4.8 meters of 9.4, site 7 is 2.2 meters of 16.6. So that's obviously quite interesting because you're essentially attempting to link up 2 areas that are very close to the workings that had some pretty high grades. The central ellipse, which would theoretically link up the area of the workings just below it with some near surface mineralization, points 2 and 3. Point 2 was 8 meters of 5 grams, 3 was 6 meters of 5.5 grams. There's a single pierce point there. So very little control on what the grade distribution may actually be there. So that's obviously an area of interest. And then there's a third ellipse up top where there's also very little information that's adjacent to site 3 that we've already mentioned the grade for. So pretty interesting targets near surface. The next slide I think shows below 1,000 meters. As I already mentioned before, far east end there, that's half a meter of 81 grams per ton gold. Obviously interesting from a perspective of continuing to test for the ultimate southeast limit of the system, which is already 3.5 kilometers long. The red arrows point to 2 intercepts that gave 1 meter of 12.5 and 4 meters of 12.6. So clearly that's open to depth with some pretty good grades. And the green cross plunge, which basically come from the information gleaned from the area that was exploited in the past, there essentially is no drilling there. So there's, again, lots of potential for deep expansion of this system. Next slide, please. So where are we at? What have we done? First half of 2021, as you know, we signed a definitive JV agreement. We've completed the fall 2020 drill program. We have the results. We've completed some IP in the winter 2021 drill programs. We finished digitizing and modeling the historical drill data for Joutel, Tell Bell, Eagle, so on. We've released all of the winter drill results. Complete geophysics, that's the airborne survey that will cover the western half of the property and all of Joutel. And of course, regional target is currently in progress. Joutel, we've released the initial 3D modeling. Douay, yep, we've already talked about that. Eagle Mine, we're currently doing a detailed review of the 3D model from a targeting perspective. And we'll be continuing to work on defining targets for Joutel. Fall drill programs will focus on Douay and Eagle. And of course, as Matthew already mentioned, we have about 15,000 meters of new drilling to go into an updated resource estimate. Next slide, please. Matthew, you want to address this?
Sure. And actually just noted that for all of you who know Michael Gray at Adelaide Capital, they're continuing to cover us on research, and he had a nice piece out just today around what they learned at their site visit, and talking about the combination of Joutel and Douay being a 1-2 punch, as he puts it. So I invite you all to look at that when you have a chance. This slide talks about our capital structure, financial position, and ownership. I mentioned at the head of the call that some of the mandates that we took on when we took over the operation and management of this company were to change a couple of things. The way we do things at site by giving Fred and team the data and the ability to continue learning from every drill program and not outsourcing all of the work to contractors. I think this is why Fred has been so successful in having repeatedly better and better drill programs over time. For the last 4 years, it's a philosophy that I learned from my mentor, one of my mentors, Robert Friedland at Ivanhoe Mines, when I brought here to the table at Maple Gold. The other thing we set out to do at the beginning of time was to find a strategic partner. This is something we spoke with and negotiated with many partners, and Agnico we found to be definitely the best for a multitude of reasons. And so that's been accomplished. And with that came the addition of institutional ownership, which is something that we set out for at the beginning 4.5 years ago to accomplish. And we've moved a lot of the retail ownership into hands of the institutional owners, which gives us a stronger base, if you will, to build upon and grow this into a much, much higher heights for all shareholders involved. And as a consequence to all that, we've dramatically increased our cash position and funding opportunities for what's needed in a company like us, where we're not cash flowing right now yet. So you're only as good as your cash position and ability to drive projects forward. And over the last few years, we've dramatically increased that and improved our cash position. So this gives you a snapshot of all of that, what I just mentioned, and gives you a sense of where our capital structure sits today. We're particularly delighted with the case of the PO and the other Montreal, Quebec-based funds, which are great supporters of us, and also other significant and noteworthy gold exploration and gold production stories, notably OTCQB and Canadian Malartic in the past. Next slide, please. Here's a snapshot of the folks with whom we work. David Broughton and I work together at Ivanhoe. We were able to fund, and David is able to explore a number of the Ivanhoe projects successfully, which has created the multi-billion-dollar company today at Ivanhoe Mines. Fred Speidel, you've been hearing from him, his pearls of wisdom for the last little bit. Karen and Jonas Karen's a former banker, and Jonas has been with me from the beginning. They're both hail from Macquarie and other areas and have been in the mining space for quite some time. On the board, we have Michelle Roth, who's a director, has been in the mining space for a long time. Maurice Dagami was at site. He's one of the technical ambassadors now at VP Wheaton Precious Metals, metallurgical engineer, 35 years experience. He's quite exceptional. Gerald Riverend is an iconic Quebec geologist with whom Fred worked also in the past and met. A wonderful human being who's with us at site. And Sean brought me to the story 4.5 years ago. It has been in the capital markets around mining for quite some time as well. So that's the current board. And last, leave you with this. It's always good to remind everyone why it is that we're excited about what we're doing and why this presents an interesting speculation for anybody who likes junior mining gold stocks. I think we have established management and board. We're located what I consider to be one of the best places to operate anywhere on the planet. I don't think we could have done better than the partnership with Agnico Eagle. That's established in place. We actually are starting with an established gold resource, which is quite important when looking at any company. We do have cash, as I mentioned, and we have now a strong institutional shareholder base, which is continuing to expand. So we think we are unique in the junior mining gold space. So we set ourselves apart for all these reasons. But these are all boxes I think that all of the audience should try to check prior to making any investment into this area. So Tina, I think that rounds out the discussion. I hope we didn't take up all the time. I think we have a few minutes left for any Q&A if there are any questions from the audience.
Yeah, that was a great update. Obviously, things have changed pretty significantly, particularly in the last 6 months. Significant drill holes across the board. So congratulations on that. Looking forward to getting to see this resource update. I know a lot of the resources is in the inferred categories. Is the goal to kind of convert that to indicated and measured as we look towards this resource?
I can answer that. Essentially, it's not a direct objective, but as we do more drilling, inevitably there are areas that are currently inferred that will be upgraded to indicated. And the reason why it's not a direct objective is that we're still, we have a fairly strong focus on discovery potential, and that lines up with Agnico's philosophy, and of course is also consistent with ours. So it's a real opportunity to be able to drill a bunch of ideas further afield in the resource area. And I think that's really driven by Agnico's own experience with East Goldie, in the sense that they were, after 80 years after production first began at Canadian Malartic, they discovered this huge new thing that has several million ounces of gold. And I think it's they are quite conscious that that sort of discovery is easily possible at Douay as well, because we're looking in both cases at what we would consider to be world-class systems, not only in terms of scale, but also in terms of different varieties and styles of mineralization. And I haven't mentioned that, but probably also overprinting, like different age periods during which a gold was added to the system. And that's kind of a hallmark of these world-class systems, that they're not one pulse affairs, but rather multi-pulse occurrences.
All that being said, our mission here is to create what is a producing gold mine. So definitely some of the work that we've done in drilling is moving it into the M&I category that will allow us to put together a scoping study, or PEA, which would be the basis of preliminary feasibility study and definitive feasibility study, which leads to actually going into production and making that production decision. So yes, we have a discovery profile and objectives, but along the way, we have to start converting the inferred into M&I so that we can start that the PEA process, which we plan to do in the near term.
I think that's underscored by the successful holes in Nika zone and also in the 531 zone. Those were clearly infill holes, and obviously they were agreed to by the partners, and there will continue to be infill holes in strategic areas that significantly improve the resource base quality.
Definitely, yeah.
One of the things that I think stands out in the presentation is the understanding of the geology through 3D modeling, but also the optionality that you have. You've mentioned several times there's the geology is open at depth. You have options to go southeast with 531. What's the goal kind of in the next program? Is that to connect some of these zones together, or will you be looking at drilling further at depth to see what's there? What's the goal?
Yeah, I mean, to connect zones where there's a relatively limited drilling, where there's much potential, like for instance, Central Zone, there's an example there where there's a significant intercept that's about 700 meters east of the Conceptual Pit. That's open, hasn't been followed up, and then there's no drilling for about 1 kilometer further to the east-southeast. So those kinds of things are obviously targets, and we continue to test them. Continuing to test at depth, yes, we do generally do one or two holes every year that are a little bit deeper, just to continue working on the concept of the underground expansion. Basically, the fall program will be focused on follow-up in the Nika 531 zones, where we had 2 of our better hits, and where we actually have access from a terrain perspective, because a good portion of the property is swampy, and we have more freedom to choose where we want to site our holes in the winter when the ground is frozen. And with regard to winter 2022, well, obviously the geographic distribution of holes will be broader. So we would expect to be drilling at Eagle, Joutel, at the Douay resource area, and some of those exploration targets that we mentioned. For instance, Northeast IP, which is several kilometers to the northeast of us. Different style of mineralization hosted in sediments, more of a VESA type model. And VESA was 500,000 ounces of 5 grams per ton, so higher than our current deposit.
But hold on, so I have to interject there. VESA actually produced 500,000 ounces at 6 grams or 5 grams.
Yeah.
What's a deposit that's actually produced to our east, about 10 clicks away. So that's why we're chasing that that target because we know it is something that's producible right nearby. And of course, if we unlock that, that moves the needle significantly for our shareholders.
Yeah, so far this is a new area, had not been drilled in the past historically, not a single drill hole, and we discovered a new sulfide system there that's more than 2 kilometers long. Has some interesting anomalies, including a couple gold showings, relatively narrow so far. We've drilled a fence of holes, if you wish, along the strike, like along the length of this anomaly. We have yet to drill a series of holes across it, and we will be doing that in winter of 2022, and that will then help us to better vector in 3D towards expected gold accumulations. But certainly a very strong system there.
Okay, great. And turning to Eagle Mine, the acquisition was pretty interesting. I think you bought it from Globex. It's 100% owned, but Agnico used to own the Eagle Mine, so they're obviously a partner on the JV. Have they guided your program at all, or have you had those discussions with Agnico on how to best proceed with exploration there?
We have weekly technical sessions with our partners. It would be and so I guess the simple answer is yes, of course, we talked to them about all the things we're doing, although this is outside the joint venture for now. I can say ... It would be unthinkable going forward, assuming that this whole area gets recommissioned and started back up again, for them not to be part of the same project, since they always been historically. It'd be unthinkable not to. We don't know when that could happen, but that would be the expectation going forward. We work very, very, very closely with them, and I cannot say enough wonderful things about them and the team. We met with their senior management here in Toronto during this trip after the site visit, which is where I am right now. So we have a wonderful working relationship with all the team from everyone in the entire organization, from Sean Boyd all the way down.
In terms of digitization and modeling some of the historic results, you've more than 250,000 meters. That's a huge amount of data. How has that shaped kind of your program going forward, and what you think of the geology? Has it changed a lot over the last few months?
Well, I'll take the first part. I'll let Fred do the second part. I would say that because the value of this data is often not found in any company or any project, it's been like a gift from the heavens to have $75 million of data just in your lap. Of course, it forms the decisions around targeting. And as Fred likes to say, I'll put words in his mouth, it's more like definition drilling versus like pure discovery, because we know where the ore body is and we know actually what they produced in the past. And I'd like to remind the audience that there are literally thousands of projects globally that have management teams around them that think that they will someday be something productive. They raise capital, they list companies, they do all sorts of things. There are not even a fraction as many projects that turn into production profiles that actually started producing any mineral that they were going after. It is extremely unique to have a project that has this much data surrounding it, $75 million worth, where they've left historical intercepts that you show where the vectors are. And it actually produced gold in the past under a totally different gold price environment. I cannot emphasize that enough. So I would say absolutely informs our decisions across the boards, and it gives us an incredible leg up. And if you were just to take some of those historical drill intercepts that were never known to the world until we released them in August and then just this morning, and put those into a brand new company and says, this is what we're going to go after, and this is what we think is left behind. Tina, you're a very smart individual. You could probably imagine what kind of value that would receive in the marketplace. So we're sitting, I think, literally on what I expect to be a gold mine. It was a gold mine, and the old adage, the best place to build a new mine is in the shadow of a head frame. And we're excited to get after that and see what potential may be there. So that's what I have to say about that, Fred. I think you may want to add to that or have your own views. We didn't rehearse this, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've been able to show the importance of a 3D model that's fully up to date with our exploration at Douay. Like the success rate, I would say, has increased since the current team has been working on the project. So I think essentially what we're doing with Eagle Bell is we're kind of jump-starting exploration in that we already have the model to begin with. I think it's really, really crucial in terms of deciding where you site your drill holes to be able to play with them in 3D and see, well, okay, if we make it a little bit steeper, we move it a little bit over to the west, what happens? You can really optimize your sites. I think that's been key in terms of successful drilling in Douay, and I think it will be key also at Eagle Bell. So, and the other thing too that I think I'd like to mention is that the geological model, and I won't go into that at all. Geological model for the deposit dates back to the 1990s, which is not to say that it's wrong. It's just to say that there's been a lot of new information that's been provided since then. And there's also some indication on the rest of the Joutel property that similar styles of mineralization may actually occur in areas that the old timers would not have expected it to be. So I think the model that we're using is a little bit more complex or composite, if you wish, that includes the model that the old timers were using, but also a strong structural component in addition. So it provides us with more targets. We understand that there isn't just a main mine horizon, there's the sub-parallel horizons, and we're confident that the airborne survey that we're doing now, like in the next couple of weeks, will not only confirm those 3 horizons, but show us a number of other ones. And I've had the opportunity to review about 1,000 meters of the 5,000 meters of core that we have for Eagle. And that's clearly shown me that there are multiple horizons. It's not just the mine horizon, but there's multiple horizons. And in fact, in the historical core, oftentimes they only assay the best looking stuff. So, you know, you have, and we've seen that in the press release this morning that there's one intercept there, 30 meters or whatever it was. In between the high grade material, there's no sample. So, you know, I mean, if that entire interval is mineralized, then that means you've got a pretty whopping intercept in terms of gold accumulation. So we're really looking forward to doing some drilling there and sampling top to bottom when we're anywhere near the mineralized horizons, not just the main one, all of them.
Yep.
And so what's the time frame in terms of getting the drills going again, and how are the assay labs looking these days?
Yeah, I think the main concern, well, not concern, but the main job at the present point in time is to get the permits and get the drills. And subsequently, well, if the labs take a month, they take a month. And if they take 2, they take 2. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. But really, the focus is on getting the drill and getting the drills turning as soon as possible. So that's work in progress and should happen shortly. We have submitted for forestry intervention permits for fall drilling at Douay already and expect to be doing that for Eagle in the next few days.
What about on the acquisition side? Can you use any of the existing mining infrastructure?
You mean existing outside of the Douay Joutel area, of course, because there is no infrastructure remaining at Eagle Bell. That's all been removed and rehabilitated.
Well, we should make it clear to the audience that's just above ground infrastructure. Below ground infrastructure, we believe everything's just the way it was. There may be some water there, but everything down there, which is the important stuff, is intact. Above ground, it's easy to rebuild buildings and office buildings and head frames. That's not the hard stuff. The hard stuff is below and finding the stopes and putting those in place.
And generally, in terms of the location, I think you guys are in a pretty good spot. There's obviously a lot of infrastructure in the Abitibi region, so it's not a bad place to be right now.
Yeah, you can drive up. You can drive up with a car or a motorbike or whatever modes of transportation you want. I mean, there's the Eagle and Bell shaft are paved. They're been grown over, but they're still paved.
We actually drove a charter bus with the whole host of analysts and bankers out there a few days ago, and it made it all the way in, no problem. So if you can drive a large, kind of a Greyhound bus size vehicle in there, you can pretty much bring anything else you like in there. So it's, I can't say enough great things about where we're located. Just like in real estate, it's all about location. We're 25 minutes from one camp to the other as you go out to the 109 highway and go down and bang right and go back into Joutel Eagle. So it all just makes sense, and it's all nicely coming together.
In terms of obviously the recent news with Agnico and Kirkland, where does that position you guys? I listened to the call. Actually, it was interesting because the core focus was on Canada and Quebec being a safe jurisdiction, a great place to mine. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that and how it affects your company.
I think it is profoundly positive generally, and also specifically for us going forward, given their emphasis on Quebec and Abitibi. We have potentially what I expect to be one of the next best mining camps, gold mining camps, already in a relationship with Agnico. So I think that is supremely positive for us. There's only good things that come out of that.
Agreed. In terms of the drill program going forward, you announced the program at Eagle. How much are you thinking in terms of Douay and how much is planned for 2021?
Ballpark around 2,500 to 3,000 meters at Eagle. Probably around 2,500 for Douay. That's just the fall. Winter will be distributed between Douay, Eagle, and Tel Bel, and probably somewhere around 12,000, 13,000 meters.
So 18,000 meters from now until the end of winter next year, which is next spring.
Any concerns in terms of natural gas and oil prices eating into the cash position at all? You guys have a pretty strong position right now.
We don't have a very large fleet of gas guzzling anything, but yeah, it around the edges it does impact things, but not materially. And
can you, on the capital structure side, can you talk to like any considerations in terms of consolidation and what management is planning to do with their shareholding position?
I mean, what do you mean by the last part? What we're planning to do with it?
Just in terms of your ownership, any plans to increase ownership at all, or?
Definitely. We've been in blackouts continuously. So we've instituted actually a program where people can contribute a portion of their paycheck to acquiring shares in the company. And I think everybody in the company has done so. So that's going to be on a rolling basis every month. A portion of everyone's paycheck goes actually into buying stock in the company. So absolutely. As far as consolidation on the capital structure, that would be only in advance or in anticipation of an event, meaning a listing on New York Stock Exchange or something like that, where you need to have a certain share price, but it wouldn't be something that without any specific target or objective in mind.
Okay, great. Always good to see management and employees supporting and believing in the story. And obviously you've had quite a successful year, so congratulations. I'll leave it with you to summarize some of the catalysts and value drivers for the company. And you know, it's been a year, so much has changed, and I think the stock price hasn't necessarily reflected that. So I think this is a really good time to be taking a look at the story again.
Yeah, I would say that you've said a couple of things there. The catalysts, I think, going forward are more drilling at across all the projects. That's going to be a big value driver for the company and for the shareholders. The resource estimate update, I think, will be another massive catalyst for us. And I think that compared to our peers, if you look at our stock chart, and I can pick at random any of them, we're holding our own. Of course, we'd have liked to be in $2, $3, $5 range already, as would anyone. But compared to what the market is giving us, and the fact that there's a very blasé view at the moment around the junior mining gold stocks, generally speaking, in respect of, you're always good to, the question is, you're good compared to whom or to what? And in that context, I think we're doing great. It's nice that you mentioned that there's still a way to get in. I think some of the strategic investors came in at prices a little bit higher than here, so I think we're not out, we're not out of range, so to speak. If someone wants to come in and create a position, if you can get the stock, it's not a bad time to do that. Of course, I would say that in my opinion. But yeah, I think that all those things are true. We have some great catalysts on the horizon, and I think that we're have significantly more upside than downside. That's for sure.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for the update. I appreciate it, and congratulations on all the success you've had so far. Looking forward to seeing that resource update and more drilling to come.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody participating today.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Speidel.